Hi there, and welcome back. What is theory of constraints? What is the triple constraint theory? How to apply the theory of constraints? Answers to all these questions with examples and much more coming up in this video. Let's begin. The theory of constraints is a management philosophy developed by Eliyahu M. Goldratt in his 1984 book called The Goal. Theory of constraints is a systematic approach to identifying and eliminating the main constraints that are preventing a process from achieving the desired results. The theory of constraints is a powerful management tool for any organization to use, but it does have its limitations. One limitation is that it can be difficult to identify the constraint or bottleneck in an organization. Another limitation is that organizations may not be able to take full advantage of this strategy due to lack of management support. The theory of constraints is a systematic approach to understanding and resolving business constraints. It is a process that identifies the one constraint that limits the performance of a system. The idea of constraints is most often mentioned when discussing manufacturing, but it applies to many aspects of modern business. It can be applied to project management as well. All projects have some risk or limitation that may affect their ability to deliver the best results. But with a little bit of effort, you can make it work. You may not have the right tools or enough teammates, and these are valid constraints. In project management, there is an important triangle of constraints that needs to be respected when coming up with a strategy. You might hear this referred to as a number of different names, including the iron triangle, project triangle, and Triple Constraint Traingle. All of them represent the same thing. These constraints include time constraints. Time constraints refer to the project schedule, including delivery dates for key milestones and the final deliverable. Scope constraints. So to understand scope constraints, let's understand what is scope creep first. Scope creep is a project's requirement that tends to increase over a project life cycle. So for example, these may arise if scope creep rears its ugly head and the predefined scope is adjusted midway throughout the project. Next is cost constraints. These refer to fixed and variable costs which the project budget, including fees for resources, materials, labor, and other necessary materials. I apologize in advance for interrupting the video right now. Just a quick message from me. If you are preparing for the SHRM exam, then consider checking out my SHRM exam study guide, the one-book learning system. I have left a link in the description of this video where you can find more details about this guide and how to use it to ace the exam. Now back to the video. When you read about the theory of constraints, there is a lot of terminology that can quickly make things hard to understand and one may feel overwhelmed. I am going to keep this as simple as possible. A theory of constraints comprises of 5 steps. Step 1 is identify the constraint. Second, exploit the constraint. Third, subordinate everything else to the constraint. Fourth, elevate the constraint. And 5, avoid inertia and repeat the process. So let's begin with number 1, identify the constraint. To succeed, you must alleviate the current cause or reason for your lack of progress. However, you will not be able to address this issue if you are unaware of the cause itself. You need to identify the constraint and you will need to identify what is holding you back. In some cases, pinpointing your constraint might be easy. In other cases, it might be less obvious. One of the easiest places to start is looking for the step of your processes that takes the longest amount of time, as that could be a place where things are getting stuck. It is also important to consider that sometimes a constraint may be out of your control. For example, the budget of your organization only allows for 3 programmers to work on the project you are leading. So there's not much you can do to change this situation. Step 2. Exploit the constraint. So now that we are aware of our constraint, which is having only 3 programmers or a budget for 3 programmers, it's now time to exploit the constraint. This sounds harsh. However, in this step, we are going to ensure that we are using the constraint to its full capacity. Dig deeper into the constraint and check for ways to make it better. For example, are you sure that the budget only allows for 3 programmers? What about interns? Would that be considered? Is it even an option? Before proceeding to step 3, if you are finding value in this video and would like to be reminded of similar videos, then consider subscribing to my channel. Like the video, leave a comment. Thanks a bunch. Let's continue. Step 3. Subordinate everything else to the constraint. In this step, we need to understand everything about the constraint. You want to make sure that everything that feeds that constraint is also running at full capacity. Your constraint should have exactly the amount of resources it needs from non-constraints to be used as optimally as possible. Example, all resources are made readily available to the constraint or to support the constraint. So, the programmers have access to everything they need. Number 4, elevate the constraint. Finally, it's time to talk about the constraint itself. How can we raise the capacity of the bottleneck, which was identified in step 1? In many cases, this is going to involve elevating it with additional resources. These could include more people, more money, or equipment, to just name a few. So other resources who could chip in and help with the constraint will be mobilized to do so. For example, you determine that you can mobilize 2 staff from the IT department who have programming experience. Step 5. Avoid inertia and repeat the process. Well, you succeeded. The resources you added to the constraint was the magic formula and now work is fluid. Well, not even close. The theory of constraints' main tenet is constant process improvement. Once you have fixed one constraint, you are likely to encounter another constraint and you begin the process again. You need to avoid inertia by not becoming complacent. The theory of constraints isn't something that you get through or finish. Instead, it's a continuous process to ensure your team is constantly iterating and improving. The beauty of theory of constraints is that it simplifies complex scenarios with an easy and understandable answer. It helps management focus on what's important by identifying individual constraints that might inhibit the organization from achieving its goals. Another way of helping your organization achieve its goals is employee engagement. If you would like to learn more about employee engagement, then I recommend you watch this video next on my channel. If you found value in this video, then like, comment and share. I post HR and leadership related videos every week. I will see you in the next video.